A cold winter morning, a busy intersection, cars honking, engines roaring, and right there, in the middle of it all, a tiny, trembling puppy, barely able to stand. People walked past, pretending not to notice, until one man stopped. Officer. Daniel, a traffic cop known for his no-nonsense attitude, bent down, and the puppy did something no one expected. It begged him for help, paws clasped, eyes pleading. Moments later, Daniel's heart froze. Something was terribly wrong with this little creature. What he found next didn't just change his shift. It changed his life forever. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And I love seeing how far these stories travel. Tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? The city woke beneath a blanket of fog that morning, its streets glazed with frost and silence. Officer Daniel pulled his collar up, his breath forming clouds as he stood at his usual post, the intersection of Elm and Fifth. The light flickered between red and green, cars rushing past like ghosts in the mist. It was the kind of morning that bit at the bones where even the birds refused to sing. Daniel rubbed his gloved hands together and sighed. Another long day of traffic duty. He'd seen it all. Accidents, arguments, chaos. But today felt different. There was a strange stillness in the air, something unspoken. And as he glanced down the icy road, he noticed movement, small, unsteady, and trembling. Something, or someone, was coming toward him. At first, Daniel thought it was just a pile of rags blowing across the icy road. But then it moved again. A tiny figure, struggling to stay upright in the cold wind. He squinted through the haze and saw it clearly. A puppy no bigger than his glove, shivering so violently that its legs wobbled beneath it. Traffic honked around it, but the little creature didn't flinch. It looked straight at Daniel, eyes wide, glassy with fear and pain. Then, to his astonishment, it began to limp toward him, each step heavy, desperate. When it reached him, the puppy lifted its front paws together as if in prayer. Trembling but refusing to look away, Daniel froze. In all his years as an officer, he had never seen anything like it. The puppy wasn't just cold, it was begging for help. Daniel immediately knelt down, his knees pressing into the cold slush as he extended a gloved hand. The puppy hesitated, then took a shaky step forward and pressed its tiny head against his palm. Its fur was damp, icy to the touch. This little thing had been out here for hours, maybe all night. Daniel could feel its fragile heartbeat fluttering like a trapped bird. But then something strange happened. The puppy let out a faint whimper, tugged at his pant leg with its teeth and began to pull. It wasn't asking to be picked up. It wanted him to follow. Confused but moved, Daniel stood up. The puppy limped ahead, glancing back every few steps to make sure he was coming. Whatever this little creature wanted to show him, it clearly mattered more than its own pain. Daniel followed the trembling puppy across the snow-covered street, ignoring the puzzled looks from drivers and pedestrians. Each step the puppy took left tiny prints in the frost, leading him into a narrow alley between two old brick buildings. The air grew colder there, the sound of traffic fading behind them. "Where are you taking me, little one?" Daniel muttered under his breath. The puppy whimpered in response and kept going until it reached a rusted metal bin near the back wall. It stopped, looked up at him and barked weakly, once, twice. Daniel frowned and crouched down to peer inside. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. Inside the bin, wrapped in a torn blanket, were two more puppies, motionless, covered in frost and barely breathing. The tiny one had brought him to its family. Daniel's breath caught as he stared into the bin. The two puppies were huddled together, their small bodies stiff from the cold. One of them twitched slightly, letting out a weak, pitiful whine that broke the silence. The smallest puppy, the one who had led him here, climbed up beside the bin, crying softly as if begging Daniel to help them. Without a second thought, Daniel took off his jacket and scooped all three into it, pressing them close to his chest. Their tiny hearts beat faintly against him, fragile but still alive. "Hang on, little ones, please," he whispered. He looked around the alley. There was no mother dog, no sign of food, just an old cardboard box with claw marks inside. Someone had left them here. The realization hit him like ice. These puppies weren't lost. They had been abandoned to die. Daniel didn't waste another second. He wrapped the jacket tighter around the puppies and sprinted toward his patrol bike, his boots slipping on the icy pavement. The cold bit at his face, but he didn't care. Every second counted. The smallest puppy whimpered in his arms, eyes barely open, while the others lay still, their breathing faint. When he arrived at the nearest veterinary clinic, he burst through the door, shouting, "Please help them, they're freezing." The vet and her assistants rushed over, taking the tiny bundles from his arms. They placed them under warm lamps, rubbing their bodies gently to restart circulation. Daniel stood there, heart pounding, unable to look away. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the vet turned to him, her face pale. "One of them might not make it," she said softly. Daniel's throat tightened. He whispered, "Just save them, please. Do whatever it takes." For the next hour, Daniel stood silently near the clinic window, his uniform still damp, his hands trembling from cold and worry. The smallest puppy, the brave one who had begged for help, refused to leave the heating pad where its siblings lay. It pressed its nose against the weakest one, whining softly as if trying to share its warmth. The vet moved carefully, monitoring heartbeats and oxygen levels. Then, after what felt like forever, one of the monitors beeped steadily. "She's breathing normally," the vet whispered. Relief flooded the room, but the second pup remained still. The brave little rescuer whimpered once more and curled beside its lost sibling, refusing to move. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. Even in death, that tiny soul wasn't alone, not while love still surrounded it. Days later, the surviving puppies grew stronger, especially the smallest one. The vet said it was a miracle any of them lived through that night. Daniel visited every day after his shift, bringing food and blankets. Eventually, he adopted the little rescuer, naming him Lucky. Months passed, and Lucky became his constant companion at the intersection, sitting proudly beside Daniel's post, wagging his tail at passing children. People who once ignored strays now stopped to pet him, leaving food and donations for the local shelter. Sometimes, on quiet mornings, Daniel would look down at Lucky and whisper, "You didn't just save your family that day. You saved me too." Lucky would nuzzle his boot, a silent promise that kindness still survives, even in the coldest places.